go into a present mode. And along the way, feel free to drop questions into the chat. I'm going to go through how you can visualize and analyze Riverwatch of Colorado data with FieldScope pretty quickly. We're going to try to do like a short version today. So anyone watching the recording, it'll be pretty easy to digest. But I did just want to preview for you that I am in next week. I think I have a slide on it. I'm doing like a longer webinar, which will cover the FieldScope tool in greater depth. So if anyone wants to join that to have some more time learning about it, that's going on as well. Oh gosh, this came from another webinar. I have a little animation in it, but I don't need it. The point of this slide is not actually about launching your slide. Excuse me, I borrowed this from another recent webinar. I just wanted to highlight that FieldScope is a tool that's used by many different organizations that are engaging, that have programs that invite volunteers to collect and contribute data. So Riverwatch of Colorado is one of those programs, but there's other nationwide programs like FrogWatch USA, where people are getting trained to listen to frog and toad calls and reporting on those. And there are also many sort of regional projects, a lot of water quality projects, but other things, including soil health and soil quality, trash collection data, and some other kinds of parameters. So phenology, ecological phenology, timing of plant life cycle events. But today we're really just going to hone in on the Riverwatch of Colorado data set in FieldScope. We mentioned this at the top of the session today, but I wanted to just convey to you how the Riverwatch of Colorado data gets into FieldScope. And if I keep saying FieldScope and you're like, but what is FieldScope? We'll look at it live in just a moment. So it'll make a lot more sense. But as you may know, your lovely program leads here, Megan and others, do all the work to make sure that the Riverwatch data that gets collected and analyzed all gets uploaded, I believe, to two places, to the Colorado Data Sharing Network. And I can, Megan, I can actually see you on my screen. So if you can do big, like, yes, correct, or no, like that's wrong.
You've got it, Sean. Perfect.
Thanks. And then also to the EPA's National Water Quality Database. And I believe, Megan, do you know in the future, is the plan to like post the data there twice a year? Or are you trying to go more regularly than that?
We're exploring that right now. That's one of the things that Ashley and I are thinking about. Like, what does that process take? I mean, right now we make all of this data available to our volunteers or anybody who wants to access it through our database. But that curation of making it nationally available is really valuable and part of our ethic. Collected by volunteers, let's make it available to everyone who is collecting. So it's definitely something we're looking at. And like I've said before, Sean, anytime we do an upload, I'm going to just ping and reach out to you and say, hey, we got some new data that's there.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then once the data gets posted there, we can really quickly sort of just click a button and it gets imported to the FieldScope application from the National Water Quality Database. So that's that middle piece of this little arrow diagram. And once it's in FieldScope, the data can be used for visualizing, analyzing, creating data stories and reports, et cetera, both by the interested public as well as by classrooms or other youth learning kinds of environments. So today, like I said, I'm going to do kind of the quick tour of everything, but I do want you to walk away with some key skills. And the skills I want you to walk away with are about how you can take the big Riverwatch data set and filter it. So if you only want to look at data from a particular location or monitoring site, or from a particular range of time, or even things like you'll want to look at, water temperatures over a certain numeric value. I'm going to show you all the different ways you can filter. And then I'm going to show you how you can add data, whether it's filtered or not, to many different kinds of data displays. So maps and a number of different types of graphs and different kinds of summary stats. And then I want to show you how you can save and share your work. So that's what I'll kind of go through. And to do that, I'm going to get out of this PowerPoint and I'm going to flip over to this Riverwatch colorado.next.fieldscope.org. I'm pretty sure if you don't have next in there, if you just do Riverwatch colorado.fieldscope.org, it'll take you to the same place. But here we are. Here is Riverwatch of Colorado on FieldScope. And we can see that currently in the FieldScope database, we've got about 63,000 different records of water quality measurement and analysis in our copy of the database. And we're going to really spend all of our time in this visualization section of the tool. So click in there. And one thing I want to know right off the bat is I'm logged in. And because I'm logged in, I have this whole list of my visualizations. These are sort of visualizations, or I like to call them data dashboards that I've created and I've saved. And anyone can create a free account on FieldScope and save their own. But the good thing is I could be in a logged out state. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and log out to show you that I can still go in and play with the data. So that can be really helpful in classrooms when you don't want to have to deal with students logging into things. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say create new. Looks like that's my one big option here. So I'm going to say, okay, sure. Let's see what this is about. And it's going to take me to this map of Colorado. And it's showing me some like data points down here in the southwest of the state. And what it's showing me actually, if I click up on this eye, is it says filter set source, recent observations. It's just showing the most recent 25 observations in the database in terms of, time. Like these are the most recent ones that are there. If I click over here, you can see these are data points from 2020, from March. And the way I did that, there's a little icon here where I can flip between map and table view. I can also click on a row in the table and kind of see it in a slightly different format, where I can see the monitoring location name and all the different parameters that were part of this particular observation. So looking at the most recent 25, okay, I probably want to do something else. I probably want to look at all data from just a particular site or something like that. So I'm going to show you how you can filter the entire Riverwatch data set to sort of look at what you want to investigate. And you do that by saying add a new filter set. You can see that there's some options for like quick filter sets. My observations, I won't get into it, but wouldn't really be that relevant to you all because the records as they are in the database aren't directly tied to you and your FieldScope account. So kind of ignore that. Where I want to direct you is just to make your own filter set. So I'm going to click that big button there. It takes me into this interface where it's prompting me to add a filter. And if I click that, I'm going to see I can filter by geographic area. I can filter by date range, or I can filter by number or value. Number is really just anything that's quantitative, like pH. Value is anything that's more categorical or qualitative. So, dominant species type or riparian vegetation dominant species present. I think for the Riverwatch audience, you're probably going to be much more interested in using numeric filters relative to the value filters. So let's just start. Let's do an area filter. And the station locations are kind of loading on this map right now. So there we go. They loaded. So let's just kind of go in here. I think a pretty common activity is you might want to generate a graph of data from just one location. So I'm going to zoom in and I'm going to sort of find, let's say like this location's of interest to me. I've been monitoring here for a long time. What I'm going to do is just kind of drag a circle around it. And it's basically just saying like, only show me data from within the circle. And I can tell from that yellow dot, there's just one monitoring station there. So now I can look up and see that there's 31 results. And I can go inspect on the table. Looks like data was recorded here back in 94. And then as recent as 2007. So looks like it's not an active monitoring site anymore, but we'll just run with it for this example. I could also download this data if I want right here as an Excel sheet. So now I made that filter for that data. We might switch around the station name. This is like not, it's like a really long character string here. That's not really helpful for you all. I think at the end of the table, it had another field for, the Riverwatch data table gets quite big. Woo, monitoring location. That's what I was looking for. Gunnison McCabe's Lane. So what I could do now that I filtered for these 31 observations from Gunnison McCabe's Lane is I could save this filter set. So I'm going to do just that. I'm going to call it something like that. McCabe's Lane. I don't know if that was a name, but let's just pretend it was. And I'm going to click save. And you can see here that I have that recent observations filter set. And now I have this new one that I created, Gunnison McCabe's Lane. Now that I've created a new filter set, I can add this filtered data to a bunch of different data display types. I can add it to a map, histogram, time series, scatter plot, range plot, numeric summary. I probably won't have time today to go through each one in detail, but I just want to give you a sense of how this is accomplished. So let's say we want to do a histogram. So now I have this filter set, Gunnison McCabe's Lane, and maybe I want to sort of explore water temperature a bit. I can see I get these different bars, and there's like how many of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Maybe I just want to show 5 buckets. So kind of just shows me the shape of the data. I can see that there were like 5 observations that had really low water temperatures, less 3.68 degrees Celsius or less. I can see that there was just one that had a really, higher water temperature. Something cool you can do is take a secondary variable and say, this makes sense. The highest water temperatures were in July and the lowest ones are in, the winter months and the shoulder seasons. So now that I've created, let's say this graph was meaningful to me and I wanted to preserve it, I could give the graph a new name and I could save it. And then it would sort of add to this display space. And I could keep adding things, right? I could add, let's just look at this numeric summary type. I could say, show me the average water temp from Gunnison McCabe's Lane, 6.888 degrees Celsius. Awesome. Always good practice to label things. That's going to add to my board as well. But notice that the graph's a little small relative to the map. What I could do is say, let me pin the graph to be the main display. So it's a little bit bigger. I could also kind of close that to look at it in a wider display. I can also kind of click. I show you one more thing that I didn't show you yet before I explain that. Notice I didn't really do anything with this map yet. And the map is actually still showing the recent data, right? It's not just showing that one site near Gunnison, it's showing that other data that was there when we started. What I want to do is go to this edit data display button. Notice all of these little boxes have an edit this data display. And the features, how you can edit it depends on which type of display you're looking at. But if I click in on the map one, I can see that it's still reading from the recent observations filter set. So I'm just going to switch it to McCabe's Lane. And now it's showing me that one data point. So it's more of like a locator map, when someone loads this, because I can save and share this with others, they can see like, oh, here's this graph, here's this site location, and here's the average water temperature at this site location. So let's take that next step of, hey, I want to save this and share it with someone. A few things. Obviously, there's this big save button here. I'm going to show you a couple of things before I click that. One is that I probably want to give this a name, so I kind of remember what it is. I can call it monitoring site. And so now let's just click save so we don't forget to do that. I was not logged in, so it's going to prompt me to log in, and I can click save. And just a reminder, the cool thing is you can do all of this without logging in. You only have to log in if you want to save something to your personal account that you can come back to later. So now that I've saved it, I could say copy this link, and then I could just now I could go into an email and press Control V or however I paste things, and it would have copied that link and shared it. I could make it private if you didn't want anyone else to see this. I could also embed the visualization. So what that means, I think this is going to be helpful and relevant for Riverwatch volunteers who are part of like other, watershed associations, those kinds of riverkeeper groups, groups with other like external websites. Now they can create one of these and actually take this code and plug it into their own website, which is great because it kind of closes the loop. Because sometimes you want to come to FieldScope and play around with the data, but you just want to show someone a cool visualization. And sometimes you want to do it on your own website. So you just take that code and plug it in. I won't do a deep dive on that. If anyone's interested, reach out. We also have a help article about how to do that. So now if I leave and I close my browser and I come back tomorrow, anytime I go to this visualization section, if I'm logged in, I can find that visualization I made. So I'm going to open it up. And now let's say that I can go in and edit it directly, but let's say I wanted to like do something different. I wanted to keep this version, but I want to make a new version where I do something different. I could say edit a copy. And then I could say, I don't know, V2 or whatever, because I wanted to make a version where it was just the map and not the graph. Let me also show you in filters how you can do, let me show you a couple other ways you can filter. We filtered just by drawing a circle before. You can also filter by county. We could also add other ways to filter in the future if, if that's something that the Riverwatch team wants to do and we can do it. But let's say you just wanted to create a filter for all the sites in Gunnison County. So great. We clicked Gunnison, we're gonna click save. There's 1,780, and I can give this filter set a name, county. And now it just kind of adds to my filter list. Maybe that Gunnison McCabe's Lane one was no longer relevant for me because I made a copy now. This is like a new map. I could say, let's get rid of that one. And let's get rid of that recent one too. So now I just have this Gunnison County. Let me also show you in the map that you can change the yellow circles so that you can do things like say, hey, show me that data, but based on the water temperature recorded at different sites. So sorry, I know I'm clicking around fast. The way I did that, I'm in the edit mode. So again, they always have this edit the data display, and then I can change, based on some different styles for the data. This is the map legend button, so you can always see what those colors mean. And then also you can change the type of map that is being displayed. So there's just like different styles that may be good for different reasons. And then under base maps, there's this map layers section where you can do things like turn on this map of land cover. And so if you kind of zoom way in, this map, I can sort of play around with the transparency of it as well. And if you can also click in it to see, hey, that sort of whatever color that is, yellowish, greenish is pasture hay. And this sort of brown is shrub or scrub. And this list of map layers is also something we can add to over time working with Riverwatch if there's requests for other map layers. I promised I would keep this short, so I'm going to pause myself just to see what questions are. I think I see some in the chat. I thank you, Megan. I love that positive feedback. And yeah, I'll just pause, see if people have big questions.
Maybe I'll let our volunteers ask some questions first, and then I have some questions. Alicia, Ashley, I don't know if you have any questions, or Carrie, anything specific. I'll give you guys the opportunity, and then I had to get a notepad. I had so many questions. Okay, fine, I'll jump in. Sean, those visualizations, with all of your different features, your average water temperature, and sorry if it's a little windy, it's easier to sit outside when I'm sitting next to somebody. Yeah. Is that updated? All of a sudden we upload a bunch more data instead of those 31 observations for McCabe's Lane. Now there's 46 or whatever there is. Is that a live visualization that's pulling that data?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It is. So right, exactly. I mean, this site seems like it's inactive, but let's pretend that, it becomes active again and you upload data. This would all update. So that's kind of a cool thing for like any given site. You can basically make its own data dashboard, at least for like maybe the really active sites. And then when new data gets uploaded, this whole display would update as well.
I know there's some volunteer groups who have kind of like done what you have made super easy, where it's, each of their parameters, like what's the average, what's the high in these different months. So they're doing, like you are doing, these histograms, and then they're kind of curating, checking their data. Like, I got a temperature of, 40. Does that even seem reasonable? No, that's crazy. So
something's wrong.
There's some check.
Mm-hmm.
Which is great for our Riverwatch volunteers, who are the first line of defense in collecting really high quality data. But also, like you said, how do you visualize, deeper? In terms of that area filter, just selfishly, I would love to see a watershed layer.
Bradley and I had chatted about that, and I said we would add it. So we're going to add it. Great idea.
Those are just a few thoughts, but it's really neat to see it in action, and it seems really intuitive. I haven't had a chance to play around much myself yet, Sean, but that each display has these common edit, delete features. Seems really great.
We found it to be pretty intuitive. I think like, a dose of training helps, right? So just get your head wrapped around, hey, what are the filter options? And what are, the different data display options? And then that core skill is really about marrying the two, right? Creating your filter set, applying it to a data display. And then of course, saving and preserving your work. Oh, one little thing I didn't show, notice when I roll my mouse, it says edit the description. There's just like a really generic description by default, but I could really use this space to I'm just like going to paste dummy text here, but kind of paste a narrative or paste, some questions that I want students to think about when looking at this. I could put whatever in there. And now when someone loads this one, let me go away and come back to it, they're going to see that. So you really think of that space as, a space for helpful annotations or instructions. So I want to make sure to convey that little bell and whistle as well.
I had a question about the embed. So that's for, you could put that on a website, correct? You'd embed that into the website. And then are you able to play around with the data the same way you would as if you're on the FieldScope website, if you embed that into a different website?
You'd be able to basically kind of do the same stuff you would if you just load it here, right? So you'd be able to kind of work with this map. You'd be able to, look at the table view. And then there'd also be a link to go to like the FieldScope version where you could then drop in to do like deeper playing around.
Gotcha. Yeah, that was part of my next question. Because I see it creates a unique URL. And that's shareable, correct? Like you can share that and they're able to access it the same way.
I could, send this, I'll drop it in the chat. Y'all are able to pull this up, this particular visualization up as well.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah. So the embedding you can kind of think about as like a secondary way to share it, right? You can always just share a link, or if you want to do something where you're like putting it in another website, you can sort of share it that way as well.
I have a question about the, since I am a volunteer, I'm familiar with the station numbers, and I'm just wondering, I see how to use the map and everything, but how it correlates to the Riverwatch station numbers if I want to pinpoint a site that's in my area that I know of.
Yeah, maybe you all can help me on that. Let's look at that together. If I go in here and we look at the table view, we've got this is this a code you're familiar with? Or I think Mikhail said people generally aren't familiar with this code. Is that right?
The 431 in there, I think, is the station number. If you scroll down, maybe, well, I guess you don't have to scroll down, like in this data set, right? You've already filtered based on this one station. So they have that in common. So that's there. what we do when we upload to the national database is we are the project, so that any data that comes from Riverwatch kind of has that marker that we are Colorado
like
Riverwatch, and
marker.
then our underscore water quality exchange, or that EPA national portal. So it's that EPA data. But absolutely, Elisa, this is not how I think about it, and probably not how you think about it. I really like your idea of that monitoring station name, Sean. And then probably also in here is the station number, probably. I didn't see that far right category, but we could look.
Yeah, I actually can show you something else that I sort of forgot to show. We're getting a bit deeper, but so notice where I am right now. I'm in this filter set edit mode, or if let's just add a new filter set too, you can see this is filter set edit mode. Let's just do a filter by date. We haven't really looked at that yet anyhow. And let's just say, show us data, since the beginning of 2020. I know there hasn't been, it's not going to show us that many, but sure, let's just run with that. Because what I want to show you is, notice this column section. Something pretty cool here is you can customize what shows up in the table. And, the table's super long. There's so much. And the monitoring location is way down here at the end. So I'm just going to drag it and bring it up to the top. And now if I look at the table, it's going to show me the monitoring location along with that long station name. And let's say I just didn't even want to bother people with that station name at all because it doesn't mean anything. I could just say, don't show me that. And then, you can imagine all the ways you could turn a lot of these off or reorder them. That status thing doesn't really mean anything on your data. So I could just say test just to save that. So yeah, that's another way of maybe dealing with that for core visualizations you want to create, just being intentional about maybe moving the table around. This one. Yeah, there we go. So now my table is, yeah. Anyhow, just want to show you that. Other questions? Like I said, we are going to do a webinar next Thursday, 1:30 Mountain Time on Zoom. We'll record it and make it available as well through our FieldScope media, and I can send it to Bradley. But that's going to be sort of a bit of a deeper dive into these tools where we spend some more time with them and look at each of the data display types, so the range plot and the scatter plot and everything. We also have a webinar next week, which is about launching a FieldScope project. So if you're involved with other citizen science endeavors that would benefit from that, that's happening as well.
So Riverwatch is just one of multiple citizen science projects across the country that you're involved with, correct?
Yeah, or I would say that are using FieldScope. Yeah.
Are using FieldScope. And is it kind of the same? Is it the same tools throughout? Does it translate exactly? It's just probably different parameters and different data sets.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it looks so similar. So FrogWatch, for example, this is amphibian monitoring. And, here they're a nationwide program and they're run out of zoos. So here's the zoo near me. This is all their chapters data. And you can see that they, spring peepers are the most commonly heard, followed by, gray tree frogs and green frogs. So yeah, they all all the tools are the same. It's just that the data sets are different across each.
That's great. Yeah, Barb, I'm curious to hear your input with all of your years of dealing with data, going from paper to computers to all this fancy visualization. What do you think? What do you make of all this, Barb?
Hey, Barb.
Hi, Sean. Good to see you. Good to see everybody, and good to see that. Hi, Carrie, and that Ashley actually exists. I don't know if you have to poke her. She actually might be a rubber doll. Well, I was excited to see. Sorry, I was late. Just how this keeps evolving. You may remember, Bradley, I've been kind of following Sean for a while, or he's been following Riverwatch for a while. So, Great to see how it's evolved here, Sean. And I typed in the chat, Bradley, this fits by design, in my mind, the data interpretation module that I wrote up. And I know Carrie's listening to this for the certification, or just for Overwatch teachers who want to do more. They don't have to be part of that certification to do it. So starting with the very simple, this goes to, you could come up with tasks that would make folks come and do an actual data exercise. There's curriculum to actually use the system to do some tasks. That's not written up, but with what they have here, Bradley, it's all there. You just have to sort of put it together. So that would be another, what I would call like an advanced data interpretive module. I was waiting for this to get, you could combine it with How's My Watershed, which is a very complementary, but a very different kind of way to display and organize and look at data, Bradley.
Absolutely.
And I think they'd be great tools, especially for schools and what have you, but even watershed groups who are always wanting more, and Riverwatch doesn't have a way to do it, if you will. And why should we, when these groups, like Sean's work, is so robust and sustainable and growing every day? We could never compete with that anyway. And why would we want to? So that's the main thing I look at. I mean, this stuff wasn't around for 30 years. And now that it's here, I think you guys should definitely try to figure out how to use it. But that's one way for sure, very easily.
Absolutely. I agree. Yeah. And I think, it's going to take, once Carrie and I get together and put our brains together to create some sort of curriculum, I think the possibilities are kind of endless. I think it will take me for sure to get a little more practice, so I know what I'm doing before I can kind of teach or wrap my head around a curriculum. But I think it's so cool. And I think most of our volunteers will find some sort of value out of it, definitely. So
I'm looking forward to putting together the curriculum. This gets me excited about it. When did you say you were doing that other tutorial, Sean?
There is one on Thursday, September 16th. I was going to drop a link in the chat on where you can register for that. Let me do that in the background real quick.
Is there any other questions from anyone? Or Megan, were you going to chime in?
Yeah, I really like, again, sometimes as Riverwatch volunteers, maybe you feel relatively isolated and you're like the only one collecting samples in your region. I think this puts on the scale of how widespread, and that we're, working together for this, common purpose. And for, schools in very different parts of the state, or groups in very different parts of the states, to do a compare and contrast. There's just so much opportunity for that in this visualization. Like, okay, let's look at somewhere on the Arkansas down by Pueblo, and we're going to be at your site, Alicia, or then we're going to jump up and we're going to be in Buena Vista at Jeff, your site. And we can just kind of jump back and forth and see and compare and contrast. I think that has such value.
The skills of being able to do that data mining and do that comparison, I could see a lot of employers really valuing this if students know how to comfortably get into it. Because you know how you and I are feeling right now about it. The kids will be just like second nature, and they'll go crazy. And that's what we need in the future.
Well, and Carrie, once you get into FieldScope, there's the inter-Riverwatch stuff. But then if you start to explore the Frogwatch and all the other projects, depending on what you're teaching in your curriculum, a teacher could use this for more. And they would discover it. And once you get, you figure it out, if you will, to me, it's just like a gateway to more for a lot of teachers.
Yeah, I agree.